$400 for that, and I think it was a week. And back then, it is a lot of money now. It was a hell of a lot of money then. So things would have eventually worked its way out of that. The bigger picture was very similar to what we were doing. They were saying, what rights do you have to be judging and putting over political power over our states?
Right, but judging what?
Everything from the little bit about slavery to how much they wanted to be taxed or how much property. It wasn't just slavery.
It wasn't just slavery, but keep in mind that back then, the rich and powerful, just like they own corporations today, the rich and powerful in the South owned the slaves. So in other words, what you had, it would be the equivalent of like a corrupt American financial corporation today taking charge of the American government and saying, we want our state to leave the country so that we can continue being corrupt financial scumbags.
All right. Let me put another point that a lot of people don't realize, that England and France were getting to the point of boycotting Southern production because of the fact that they did use slavery.
Slaves, right.
So if England and France had decided to pull the strings and say, yes, we are boycotting them, you want to know how quickly that subject would have ended? Real quick. Because they relied on cotton and tobacco from down south. The other factor that people don't think about, too, is it wasn't just the South that was funding the slavery. It was the northern factories, production, that was sending money down there to fund them to be able to afford that.
Right.
So once that got cut off during the Civil War, there goes your funds.
Right, but wouldn't it be... But it is... I know, brainwashing, exaggeration, all this...
Public schools.
Yeah, yep. But is it not fair to say that if it was not for slavery, the South would not have fought the War of Secession? We would not have had that big mess? And in other words, slavery was the indirect cause of it. You know, the South was fighting for its right to leave the Union. But the reason it wanted to leave was so the rich scumbag plantation owners could keep their slaves and keep making corrupt money.
Yeah, it was a part of it. You're right.
Yeah, so I mean, and it was a part of it, and it was the major part. In other words, it's like saying, you mentioned the Nazis. If there was no Adolf Hitler, would there have been World War II? No. If there had been no slavery, would there have been the American Civil War? No.
I don't think that's correct in that saying.
They would have had no excuse to fight.
Slavery was a way of getting the war started, a bigger picture of it. But if there were other parts of that where if slavery had been left alone, eventually the South would have exploded into this war. It was happening. It was a ticking time bomb, and the slavery was the crutch that the nation used to push forward with this. Instead of the issues that Americans really don't pay attention to, like now, they use this an equal, and it was, don't get me wrong, if you're listening, don't throw tomatoes at me. It was a big part, and slavery is absolutely wrong, but it eventually would have ended.
It kind of sounds similar to the fact that we spent 10 years looking for weapons of mass destruction, and we'd be greeted as liberators.
Exactly.
Well, yes.
I mean, the slavery was going to
keep in mind, when did the documentation happen during the Civil War about slavery being no more? Did it happen at the beginning of the war?
Well, no, the war was not initially fought to free the slaves. See, there's two different issues here.
That's what I'm trying.
You're talking about two different things. The North was not fighting the Civil War to free the slaves. That came later. They did it as a propaganda maneuver and they did it as a military maneuver. But the fact remains that without slavery in the American South, there would not have been a civil war. The end. So in other words, as far as this matter of the Confederate flag, you can talk all you want about how it's, and I understand completely. I mean, back in my day, you know where I first saw the rebel flag was
during the Civil War.
I wasn't going to go there.
Not quite. I am not quite as archaic as Tony Jones. No, I first became acquainted with the Confederate flag on a Lynyrd Skynyrd album.
Yeah.
And and kidding aside, for years, my friends and I, being moderately stupid and brain cell damaged, we just thought the Confederate flag was a Lynyrd Skynyrd symbol. kind of like, the alchemy symbol was on the Blue Oyster Cult albums, or the lightning bolts were on Kiss albums. That's what we thought the Confederate flag was. And when you asked, oh, what's that? They said, oh, it's the Rebel South. The rebellion, like the band that was just in here, and I hope you heard that interview. Like they just said, it was a symbol of rebellion. It wasn't a symbol of anything. We didn't know any different. We didn't know anything else.
But would you agree it was not born on a symbol of hatred?
It was born in a confederacy that had already instituted slavery. It was born in a slave condoning society. Yeah, it was. In other words, the Confederate South was a corrupt, hate-filled society. The Confederate South is now granted, and again, I don't want to stay on this too long, but throughout history, we've had slavery. In other words, if you look at history, there was slavery in the ancient Roman Empire. There was slavery in Genghis Khan, all of those Asian empires. There's always been slavery. The difference with American slavery in the Old South was that, and you can fact check, I didn't learn this on Wikipedia. The only time that slaves were not considered human beings was in the American South. In other words, if you were a slave in Rome, that just meant that the Romans conquered your country and you were providing free labor. Same thing in Asia, same thing in ancient Greece, wherever you want to look at slavery. It was always just you lost the war, so they're going to get some free labor out of you. The end. In the Bible, wherever you want to look. Only in the American South was the public taught and America taught that black people were not human beings. And the slavery in the South, for that reason, was a lot more vicious. It was a lot more evil than it was when you were a prisoner of war and they said, okay, build those pyramids. Different thing, a different level. And as a master of evil yourself, Chuckles, you can understand this. It was a different level of evil. In other words, because in the American Constitution it says all men are created equal, right? How can we have slavery in the United States if all men are created equal? Answer, black people are not human. It's the same line that the Japanese Empire used in World War II, to massacre whole countries of people. And it was the same line that the Nazis used in World War II to murder the Jews. These are not people. So, and that's where the Confederate flag came from. That culture. Yes, they added on to it later. Yes, there was this and that. But there's no way around it that's where the Confederate flag came from. Now, me personally, do I care if they fly it nowadays? No, I don't care. It's that we have more important things, like we just said earlier, this is nonsense. We have more important things to worry about. If you want to talk about race in this country, let's talk about it. Let's not take the Dukes of Hazzard off the air. Let's not, on my personal favorite, All in the Family, the old Archie Bunker show used to be on cable. Now it's not, because once in a while they said the word nigger on the air, even though it was an anti and progressive stance they took toward those issues. Yeah, people are looking in the wrong places. They're taking a superficial look toward this whole subject. It's going to die. It's going to go on for a while. Then it's going to die down, and we're going to be exactly where we were when we started. Until the next time.
Well, a better segment cannot have ever been made. I have some local music queued up now. We're going to hear from the Nymphadels. By the way, the infamous West Warwick Booms are going off behind us once again tonight. But here's some Nymphadels, and as I said, a better segment could not have been made. Here's a song called Wake Up right here on 4th of July Eve on Rhode Island Free Radio.
We need inside. Wake up and wipe the sleep out from your eyes. I wanna see the dream you hide inside. So I'm turning all the stations on until we find our favorite song, and we won't stop, we'll sing along because the night is young. That's why we need a little wake up, wake me up, because I've been sleeping too long. Turn it up and now turn it up and now turn me up. Wake up, wake me up, because I've been sleeping too long. Turn it up and now turn it up and now turn me up.
Wake Up, the track you've just heard, a little Nymphadels right here on Rhode Island Free Radio. We are live and local. It is 4th of July Eve. Full house tonight. I have two pop culture experts with me tonight in George Garner from the Haunted Cabaret and Chuckles the Clown from Chuckles Crypt. So I'd be remiss if I didn't float this news story out to get their take on it. By the end of 2015, Netflix will have more viewers than Fox, NBC, ABC, and CBS. Now, personally, and you guys know me personally, I went years without having an actual physical television and would occasionally utilize Netflix back then. But the fact that Netflix are going to have more viewers than 10, 12, and 6, as it were, back in our day, the tide is turning. But did you see it happening that quickly?
Go ahead, Chuckles.
I'll put this out there. Yeah, it's cheaper. $9 a month versus what? $178 for cable. I got dirt cheap internet. Like, it doesn't work half the time, but I got dirt cheap internet, and it's television. I'll be honest, puts on crap, and you're force fed to watch crap, and sometimes you really don't want to watch crap, and you want to watch a cool movie or a sitcom.
Except for cable access, right?
Yeah, cable access. Once we get to Netflix, I'm all done with Rhode Island cable access.
Wow, you heard it here first, folks.
Once we are there, we are done with that.
Well, I'll tell you what's even probably more of a factor in driving this migration to the internet and Netflix and the internet in all its forms is what I hate, besides the fact that most of the shows on the networks are terrible, the commercials are like epidemic. I don't know, not that long ago, I remember when there was more program than commercials on an hour of network television.
And luckily, we have our very own Sheldon Whitehouse putting very important legislation through that will make sure that the voice level, the noise level of the commercial will not be louder than the program. That's huge.
I'll tell you, I am impressed by that.
That is huge.
But my money is still on Netflix and the internet.
Yeah.
In this battle.
Yeah, that's part of the issue I'm having with traditional